August 16th, 2021. This is a regular assembly meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bob,
Here.
David,
Here.
Jay,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Mark,
Here.
Chelsea.
Here.
Okay, we have a full assembly this evening with members Norheim and Stanton Gregor calling in. It's now time for the voluntary pledge of allegiance. Okay, next item on the agenda. Item 3, approval of minutes. There are no minutes available for approval this evening. Item 4, amendment and approval of this evening's meeting agenda. If there's no amendments, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move forward as presented. No public hearings this evening. Item 5, item 6, no bid awards. Clerk Thompson, are there any persons to be heard related to the agenda calling in?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay, and there's no one in the audience that is here for that, I don't believe. So we'll move on to item 8, persons to be heard unrelated to today's agenda. And no one calling in for that either. Item 9, board, commission, and committee reports. There are none. No items under the consent agenda. And report of other officers. Mayor's report is fairly short today. I would like to wish my condolences from myself and the assembly to the friends and families for the loss of Palmer Thomason, Chris Lopez, Jerry Kernvik, and Nell Sotna Sr. So my thoughts are out to those families. We're seeking letters of interest still. The assembly is seeking letters of interest from borough residents who wish to serve the community by filling a vacant seat on the following boards and commissions until the October 2021 municipal election. Planning Commission, there's 1 vacant seat. Public Safety Advisory Board, there are 2 vacant seats. Letters of interest should be submitted to Clerk Thompson at the borough office located at 12 South Nordic Drive, or by mailing to Box 329, Petersburg, Alaska, 99833, or by emailing dthompson@petersburgak.gov. And just a little reminder, you have till the 24th at 4:30 p.m. if you're interested in running for any elected positions in the borough. So that's it for the mayor's report. And I don't believe the manager has a written report today. So
No, sir.
nothing to report off the cuff.
No, sir.
Okay, so that brings us, let me back up here. To unfinished business, ordinance 2021-12. This is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of electric utility revenue bonds in an aggregate amount not to exceed $7.8 million to finance the Blind Slough Hydroelectric Refurbishment Project and the Scow Bay Standby Generation Project, and directing that this matter be submitted to the voters for consideration at the next regular election to be held on October 5th, 2021. And this is the 3rd and final reading. I'd entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its 3rd reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by member Kinsinger, seconded by member Lynn. Is there any discussion? And we had a very good explanation at the last meeting from Mr. Hagerman. So I think we're all up to speed on it. So very important. So if there's no discussion on this, I'd like the clerk to call the roll.
Taylor,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes. Okay, that ordinance passes unanimously in its 3rd and final reading. That brings us to item 15 on this evening's agenda. And it's new business, ordinance 2021-13. This is an ordinance amending section 3.08.080 of the municipal code entitled Quorum and Voting Requirements to allow assembly member participation by teleconference to be counted for purposes of determining a quorum. I'd entertain a motion to adopt this in its 1st reading.
So moved.
Motion been made by member Kinsinger, seconded by member Mucci. And just for a little side note here, Assembly member Kinsinger requested that an ordinance revision to allow Assembly member participation by teleconference to be counted for purpose of determining the quorum. He asked to have this on the agenda this evening. So any discussion, member Kinsinger?
Yes, the reason for this ordinance is quite simple. A lot has changed this past year, and one of the positive things, if there is anything positive to say about COVID, is that we have a lot better capabilities here in our council chambers for members to participate either via the internet or via the phone. A lot has changed in the last few years in that regard, and I think we've gotten the kinks worked out of the system. My main concern, and it's not just limited to the assembly, but I think even more importantly to planning and zoning, which also falls under this ordinance. I know that we have had not that many assembly meetings that we've missed from a lack of quorum. I think it's very important that we all make an attempt to be here in person as much as possible. But that said, I know life intervenes a lot of times, and we have situations where people just can't make the meetings due to work schedules, recreational schedules and whatnot. And I think it's important, particularly in our democracy today, to be able to have as wide a participation as possible from as many people as possible. And my hope was that by having this ordinance, it would possibly make it easier for other people to serve on the assembly. And I would like to say that we were really lucky this summer. We nearly had one other meeting that we weren't able to conduct because of a lack of quorum. And we had one meeting that we had to cancel because of a lack of quorum. And I think we do the public a disservice by not having our meetings on a regularly scheduled basis. I think there's too much business that we do not get done if we delay it to the next meeting. So that's the reason I think that this ordinance should be in place. And I want you to give special consideration for planning and zoning. They have a hard time having a full board of 7 members. A lot of times they'll maybe only have 5 members. And, you know, if you got 2 people out of town, you miss a meeting. And since planning and zoning only meets on a monthly basis, then if you have an issue in front of planning and zoning, it can take as long as 2 months, possibly even 3 months before you can get it reviewed by planning and zoning. And I think that's a great disservice to the public. And, you know, if you're trying to build something and you put something in front of planning and zoning in May, and it's supposed to go in front of the June meeting and there's no meeting because of lack of quorum, then something happens in July, you've missed the entire construction season. So that's why I think that this ordinance is really important for us to adopt right now.
I have questions for the assembly members who are off island. Are there ever situations where you would be able to call into a meeting but not physically come to town for them?
No,
No.
I'd have to come at least to the island to get phone service to be able to do it.
Yes, I've had many an instance where I've conducted meetings. Unfortunately, my house, no, I don't have good cell coverage, but down the beach, I do have a neighbors where I can make a connection. And, you know, I'll definitely try my hardest, and I think I did all last year to make for sure that if the weather looks bad, I'll either come in a day early or I'll come in earlier in the day. But that said, when I was working, fortunately, I'm semi-retired right now, but when I was working, it would have been very difficult to have been on the assembly.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because that was kind of one of my questions on this topic. It's something that I thought a lot about my summer in Elfin Cove when they talked about their struggles with organizing local government out there and having people who lived in the community year round being a part of the local government versus just the folks that basically summered in and then wintered out. It was a hot topic of conversation. And so applying it to Petersburg, I'm less worried about that. I think COVID did highlight how important it is to have the ability to connect, even if not over the phone. So I think that's why I'm supporting this. For example, last meeting, when I didn't make it in quorum, I had actually texted Clerk Thompson about how many people would be in the room because I had reason to believe from my travels that I had been possibly exposed to COVID, and I didn't want to bring that into this room if not necessary. But if there hadn't been the 4 people in the room, I would have masked up and just made it happen because I wasn't willing to have a second meeting be delayed. But then that would have been, again, multiple tests from now, I'm good to go. But I had to have that internal debate of whether it was worth the risk because we're not spaced anymore. We're not having as many precautions in this physical space right now. And so given the current climate and the leaps and bounds we've gone, you're right, as far as communication technologies, I think that it makes sense. And so that's why I'll be voting for this, but looking forward to what any other folks have to say.
Member Lynn?
I'm going to go the opposite direction. Is that, we have it open to the public, and I think that we should make every attempt possible to be in this room. And I do not believe that doing it over the telephone like we've been doing in the past I think it does a disservice because I don't think we have the debate that needs to occur. And I also don't believe that we truly give true representation to our publics. So I'm going to go the opposite direction. The other part is, I believe in all the years I've been on there, I think there's only been 4 or 5 times that we've not had a quorum. The last couple of times, we got pretty busy and got away from folks, but that we didn't ask. So I don't think that's a problem. If planning and zoning is a problem, I think that could be a separate ordinance that we could take up. But I do believe that we need to be in this room. Thank you.
Member Mucci?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I want to thank Member Kensinger for bringing this forward. This is a great idea. Anything we can do to make coming to a meeting or participating in a meeting easier for the public, I think that's a good thing. I don't think the intent of this ordinance was to vacate the council assembly chambers and have it done on Zoom. I think we're just looking for, an option of conducting borough business when we have to. Like Member Kensinger was saying, that when we back up the meetings, there's still borough business that has to happen. And I can't see any really negative things about this ordinance. I might hear about them in the next couple of weeks or between now and the next reading. But yeah, this looks like a good way. We've spent how much? $60,000 on the sound system and the Zoom system here in the chambers, and it seems to be working pretty darn good. And you see Taylor on his boat and Jay out in Big Sky, Montana country, and seems to work. And if there's any big embroiling topics, controversial topics, I'm sure we'll all be in this room duking it out. I agree with Bob, though. It's nice to have that dialogue, person-to-person dialogue, but sometimes stuff happens. You have to stay home with a family member or your kids or stuff. Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Member Stanton Gregor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, first off, I'll be voting for this, and there's several reasons why. I tend to agree with Member Lynn said regarding the phone GCI system that felt much more disengaged to me. But now I'm able to look Member Lynn over there and all y'all in the face, and if there's members of the public, they could be interacting with me. So I think we've solved that one. But from an assembly member's perspective, and wanting to have more people be engaged in the democratic process of running for office, and taking a step further from a self-employed standpoint and a parent standpoint, 2 meetings back when we had to cancel the meeting, I already blanked my whole work schedule for the day. I was going to pop in, be there for the meeting, 2 Mondays back, and you learn to rely on the first and the third Mondays of each month. And as a parent, I at times, like over the last year, I'd have a sick kid and would get them set up, and having the ability to stay home and do that, I think, is important. Not convenient by any means, but parenting isn't convenient, so that goes without saying. I think what Member Kensinger and Member Mucci both touched on is making this process more accessible to the public. And I mean running for planning and zoning or the assembly. I think things that make it easier for participation. And I don't know, although I'd rather be sitting in chambers having this discussion, I have no beef having a debate over Zoom, and I don't think this has held me back from voicing my 2 cents on this ordinance. So in short, I'll be voting for it today. Thanks.
Member Norheim, you have any input?
Yeah, I do. I was initially had the stance of member Lynn, but in thinking about it over a couple days here, it's been more, I think it's fine, especially with the Zoom thing. If it was just phones, I don't think I could go for it. But like the vice mayor said, I can see all of you. And if somebody in the public wanted to see me, I believe I would be on their right-hand side over there. You're not just a disembodied voice over the phone. So I'll vote for this and move forward and see what the public has to say on it.
Any other input from assembly members? I feel like Member Lynn, I think the public should have, and I'm not saying that if this passes that everybody's just going to be calling in and it says everybody should make the best attempt to be in the room. But I think the public, if they want to come and address the assembly, should be able to come and see you in person and see you eye to eye. You get I know the Zoom thing's better than just a phone call. I agree with Mr. Norheim on that, but that's the reason I won't be supporting this. I think people should be able to come to the assembly chambers and participate personally for these meetings. So if there's no other public or no other input, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Taylor,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
No.
David,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Mark.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2021-13 passes with a 5-2 vote with members Lynn and Mayor Jensen opposed. That brings us to item 15B, COVID committee and borough website COVID dashboard. This agenda item was requested by Assembly Member Mucci. I don't see any details, but I guess we need a positive motion to move this forward. And I don't know what we're moving forward exactly, but forming a committee and doing a borough website COVID dashboard again. So we need a motion.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I'd make a motion that we empower the city manager to form a small committee of borough employees and find a public health officer and to update and stand up the COVID dashboard on the borough website.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made, like Member Mucci stated, and seconded by Member Tremblay. Any comments? Member Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was the conversation that started at the last meeting. I feel it's really important that the borough have a presence on our website that the public can go to access what the borough is doing related to COVID, and also with links to the hospital and the school board and the school administration. The school has asked us for help, and we'll talk about that later on in the evening about weighing in on the reopening plans. And the hospital has asked us for some help to set up some type of a response or organization so that we can officially be in the meetings that are going on at the hospital. Sandy Dixon has been doing a great job getting to those meetings, but I think we need something formal within the community. I can't, like I said last week, when I looked at the websites from the other communities around Southeast, Petersburg was the only one that didn't have any kind of mention of COVID on their website. So, I'm looking for the borough to give direction to, or the assembly to give direction to the city manager to set up a small 2 or 3 person group consisting of Steve as the, I guess, incident commander, or just the person at the top of the chain here, to make sure that the assembly has enough information. So when the time comes to respond to something that the hospital or the school board asks us, that we can. I envision and hope that Steve reaches out to Sandy Dixon and the hospital to try and come up with a public health officer to help the borough, figure out when there are issues that the borough needs to weigh in on. I think there's a need for a little bit of public relations from the community and from the borough. I know the last time we did this, we had a city staff who spent some time, a lot of time getting out a nice message to the community. And I think we might need a little bit of help with that. So I just wanted to open up the discussion. I know we've talked about it over the last week with several different people, and I think we need to be ready to respond when asked for. So that's kind of where I'm at this one, and looking forward to the conversation here. Thank you.
Member Lynn?
I'd like to hear from manager what his thoughts are.
Manager Giesbrecht?
Yes, sir. Well, how about I start off with what we're already doing and kind of go from there. So when the EOC was disbanded, Sandy Dixon has been our emergency manager forever, and she took the job. It kind of is the point person for everything. So she's been attending meetings with the hospital, and you've seen some of her updates that come through. And she's doing a very good job of that. She keeps me informed, and I think it's a direct copy to the assembly as well. So we'll continue to do that. Tara, from her vacation, was able to log in and add some links to our borough website, so that if people go out to the borough website, you'll see the COVID links that link directly to the hospital's dashboard, as well as their press releases and information that they put out. I continue to feel that's probably the smartest thing to do. This is a public health issue kind of at this point, and they are absolutely in the middle of this. So their information is going to be a lot more current, and then them passing information on to us, than us opening up another dashboard. I think it's just kind of a change for folks to link to the hospital and watch their information, but that's in place on our website as we speak. Also would like to really encourage people to, Petersburg Medical Center has a Facebook page. If you have not liked their page, all their press releases come out on Facebook and are available not only on their website, but through Facebook, just like when we had stood up the EOC with the borough doing that. So it's a useful tool to see everything that's going on. You can also like the Petersburg Borough, and those updates are going through there as well. Off of our website, the public health officer issue, I copied some information out to the assembly for you guys to review. I've traded emails with one of the doctors, and I'm trying to firm that up here when they're available. And one of the first things would be to just kind of talk through about what do we need done. And I kind of lump it into right now 3 areas that I think we'd want to talk about if you're a public health officer. One is kind of the whole quarantine issue, meaning if someone's put on quarantine, how do we keep them there? We've had some reports of people being quarantined and then wandering around town. So can we do anything about that? And I don't know the answer to that. The second is some control over the harbor, particularly around cruise ships, but just, we've had reports of, boats with COVID on it, and, we don't really have a great idea on how to handle that. I'm not sure we can enforce anything. I'm not sure how we would enforce that, but I think having a conversation is probably worthwhile. And once we have a public health officer, that's one of the things we'll talk about. And the third is the whole issue of, how we're going to handle, an outbreak if it in fact happens. And what worked really well last time was to run up the EOC. And I think we would probably do the same if we had a major outbreak. We would, pull more people into the mix and work with the hospital and public health to figure out, what do we need to do next. Don't really need to do much right now. I know that's maybe in some ways folks are wanting more information. There's not a whole lot more information to share right now. I think we heard we had some positive cases. Before today, we had dropped to 0. And for whatever really wonderful reason, we just don't seem to be affected by the outbreak as it's occurring all the way around us. So, or at least not to that extent. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. The hospital, I think, does a great job working with Sandy to, keep us in the loop on that. And, she'll be coming to me if we start to see this where it gets to the point where we really need to put a lot more attention to it. And, you know, there are a lot of different things we could do if there's an outbreak. The challenge is, do we really want to do them? I mean, you can do mask mandates, we can cut capacity in social groups and public meetings. You know, we've really gone down that road, and I'm not sure, you know, we want to go back that way. I think right now, as some of member Michi talked about, it's really about communication. In the event of a disaster, as a borough manager, I can declare a disaster, and it's good for 7 days. That gives us time to do something, start to organize, and then the assembly has to ratify that to say, yes, or Steve, you're out of your mind. We don't need this. So we can respond fairly quickly. And then it allows us to get the assembly into a special meeting or regular meeting, whatever. And on, all right, what do you want to do? How do we want to attack this? And that's where you can hear, we can get the hospital in here, we can get Sandy in here, and we can talk about what are our options? How do we want to, you know, do this? And I think, so I think we're in good shape to respond if something happens. It just may not appear that way because we don't have a staff of 20, you know, working on daily press releases every day. So that's kind of what we've done, and a little bit of what we're still working on. I think that public health officer is important, but as you saw in the email I sent out to you, I'm a little concerned about the language in that ordinance, and I really think that needs to be taken a look at. I say that because when we went through the emergency ordinance, the assembly made your wishes pretty clear about where you wanted those decisions made, and it was with your body, not with the city manager. And that this is an old ordinance that literally says, go hire a public health or go get a public health officer and they can do all these things. I just not sure that's what you folks want. So that has to be resolved. And that's kind of.
Thanks for the rundown there, Steve. Remember Lynn?
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, I've talked to Mr. Hofstetter. He asked me to follow up on 2 items, which Steve and I've talked to Steve about them. One of them has to do with if we have a ship in the harbor and there's COVID on it, what do we, Mr. Hofstetter and the medical officers thinks we need some additional teeth to be able to say, no, you're not coming ashore with COVID cases on board, a few things like that. And I've talked to Steve about that, and Steve's following up on that. The second item has to do, and he complimented Sandy doing a good job with the hospital. So I'm not sure we need any more follow-up in that aspect of it. But on the medical officer side, I totally agree with what Steve said, because that's the other item that Mr. Hofstetter talked about, was having a medical officer with some authority to be able to say that if you've got cases on board a ship or a boat of some sort, that they do not come into town, and you have some way to enforce it. How we do that, yeah, I'm not sure, but those are the 2 items that they asked me to follow up on, and I have talked to Steve about them. Thank you.
Jay, Taylor, any input? Jay?
Yes, still just listening right now. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm processing what member Lynn just said.
Okay. Anybody else in the chambers have any input? Member Tremblay?
I think this makes a lot of sense, updating old language and having a small team of people to figure out how we could be more prepared as a community, given the rapid ability for things to change, given the dynamic situation we're swimming in together. I think that we already are more ready than we were in, say, February of 2020. But I keep thinking of this as like it's like a computer program that's just running on low power in the background right now, and being a little more ready so that when we really need it and we activate it, it doesn't take 6 days for us to all sputter into alertness and respond too late. So I think it makes sense. And what you have emailed to us looks common sense to me as far as who to pull in and what they'll be working on. And so, yeah, thank you for that background work before this meeting.
Kinsinger?
Yes, I think, Steve, you've done a good job in summarizing what we need to have done and what you're doing right now. I think my main concern was that there was good communication between the borough, the hospital and the school system. And I think, and if we can assist each other, particularly the schools, I mean, that's, they have a big job ahead of them. We all want to make sure that our kids are in school this year, and whatever we can do to make that happen. And if we can facilitate that in any way possible, I think we need to be ready to do that. So thank you for what you've been doing so far.
Any other input? Jay?
Thank you, Mayor Jensen. Oh, that feedback is harsh, man. We got to get that dealt with. Anyway, there's processing things that were said there, and thinking about Steve's emails. I think Member Kinsinger touched on for me, which is the most important part of all this is as of now, our most vulnerable entity in the district is going to be our school district. Having paid fairly close attention to school reopenings down south, and granted, I understand that's not apples to apples, Petersburg to other communities, but it's being, mindful and respectful of the school board and the administrators have to navigate and will have to navigate. I think the more we can do to streamline and expedite communication and have, I don't know what the right word would be, just readiness available, makes sense to me. So thank you, Steve, for keeping us posted on that. And I think I'll be probably voting yes on this today, because a little bit of preparedness as we roll into opening up the school year, I think would be makes sense to me. That's all.
Thank you, Member Stanton Gregor. My issue with what we're discussing here and what we're going to vote on is, what are we voting on? I understand the concept of it, but is it a 3-member committee? Is it a 2-member committee? And, I'm pretty comfortable right now with the way things are going, with Sandy communicating with the hospital and Steve having the ability to form a, emergency or whatever the proper language is for a week, and we can address it. But for myself, and I'm thinking for people in the public that look at an agenda and see this with the vagueness of it, I just don't know how to approach it. I guess we have to make an amendment to what? If we're going to make an amendment, we have to make a 4-person board, a 5-person board consisting of who? I think at this point, I consider this more of a discussion item than an action item with the details that are in this item 15B. So that's, I don't want to say confused. I don't think I'm confused. I'm just wondering what we're voting on. Member Mucci?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think right now it's very, to me, it's not very important how many people are on the committee. What I'm concerned about, or what I am trying to get accomplished, is I want to give the city manager the authority to get as many people as he wants to stand up some type of information system or response system. If he thinks it's 3 or 4 people that can do that, that's fine. I'm leaving that discretion to the city manager. He'll decide if he needs a public health officer or somebody with Sandy's expertise, or a public information officer. All I want to make sure is that we've given the city manager direction to form a committee. It can be 2, 3, and I've said before in the past, I don't want it to be the whole EOC like we've had in the past. I want it just to be a small group that can attend those meetings, not Steve, but he can delegate somebody to attend those meetings and make sure that information that we're hearing from the hospital and the school, and if there's any questions for the assembly, that we are able to respond to both the hospital and the school system. And if there's a time and a place that we need to do more as a borough, the city manager has that authority to do that stuff. And that's what we pay him to do. And somebody asked me, well, how do you know when there's an emergency in town? Trust me, we will know when there's an emergency in town. Phil will be ringing somebody's phone off the hook saying, hey, you guys got to do more than you're doing right now. And that's all I want. I just want to make sure that the community knows that we are paying attention to it, because it hasn't gone away. We'll talk about this later, but one of the big things for me is making sure the school opens in a couple weeks or next week. and getting those kids back into a halfway normal situation. Community members tell me that they want the community to get back to normal. Well, the community will never get back to normal if we don't have a steady, dependable daycare system and we don't have the schools open. Because once those two shut down, then the total economy of Petersburg shuts down. And we can't have that. So these are just a proactive approach, not a full-blown EOC, just Steve and decides who he thinks would be appropriate to make this happen. And that's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
Berlin?
I think I'm the same place the mayor is. That I think, listening to the conversation tonight, I think Steve's got a handle on it that he can move forward. I don't think there needs to be a vote on it. I think there's a couple of things after we get through with this, probably needs to come back for some new ordinances, but I think he's got the emphasis now to what folks want done. And I'm not sure what we'd be voting on, so guess I'm the same place the mayor is.
Tremblay?
For clarity, Clerk Thompson, could you read back what Assemblymember Mucci had made as the motion?
So the original motion was to empower the manager to form a small committee of borough employees as an information response system and stand up the dashboard on the borough website with relation to the hospital and the school. It's not word for word, but it's close.
Thank you. We just,
Since we're having this discussion, I would recommend, and I hope we all agree that this ordinance from 1973, the disease control, I think we need to address this. And would you?
It has been sent to the attorney already.
I figured as much. Conversations, but that's good. So, kind of scary actually. But, so anyway, excuse me, Member Tremblay, you had more to.
yeah, just kind of a follow-up on that. I think that being clear about having that committee for the express purpose of this focus where with regards to COVID. And then, I mean, would you consider within that the update of the health policy as like that? So the group that you have emailed us about, I'm going to get specific with this, includes forming a representative from the hospital, emergency manager Sandy Dixon, Chief Kerr, Harbor Master Wallen, and the borough attorney. That is itself the focus group that's going to be needed to update this. And so we're the health policy. And so in my mind, being explicit about who forming that group, but also giving you the freedom to plus, add and subtract as necessary and as schedules allow. So to my mind, it seems pretty clear what that direction is. And I do think that being explicit about it, because otherwise COVID is just this floating amoeba that we can't dial in. And so for that reason, I'm glad that we have the motion on the floor and will be voting support of it. And I think that that's my final comment.
So I'd like to ask the manager if he's clear on what the direction would be. I mean, we've already got the COVID dashboard up, right? So that's done, that's good. So do you feel that this, I know if we give you direction to do so, that's your marching orders in a
Yes.
sense, but are you comfortable right now with the way we're moving forward with Sandy, with the working with the hospital or being our contact person? And
There's a couple of things I'd like to just say, maybe that where I am unclear. We've talked about meetings. Sandy is going to these meetings. So if there are more meetings that we should be going to, somebody should tell us, particularly Sandy. She goes to constant meetings. And if there's more out there and we have to split up time, then her and I will take care of that. But I really don't know of other meetings that Sandy should attend that she's not already doing that. So just want to clarify that. It's not a change to, the other is the school. And Assemblymember Mucci's right about keeping the school and the daycares open. But I'm not sure the assembly should be telling me to get into the middle of how the school operates. And I know that's not exactly what was said. I just want to make sure that's clear. That's the school board's job, is to outline, and we're here to help. And I'm absolutely okay with that. And we've done a lot of that. But, I just want to make sure that's understood. It's not our job we shouldn't be our job to get into the middle of what the school and how they're operating. If that's what the assembly wants, then we probably need Erica here and the school board to have that conversation to make sure I'm hearing that correctly.
Yes, I hope you didn't misunderstand what I was saying in relation to being able to assist the schools. I didn't mean that we were going to be directing the school board to do anything. And what I see this as more us telling you, or if this passes, the assembly giving you the authority to do what you think is necessary at the time as it's necessary.
Fair enough.
And that's basically, I'm trusting your good discretion and your ability to put resources in the situation as is needed. And that's just us giving you the authority to do that so that you don't have to feel like somewhere down the line, we're going to say, well, you didn't tell us to do any of this stuff, blah, blah, blah.
And I appreciate that. What I'm probably thinking or reading too far ahead, when I see an item that says Petersburg School District reopening plan, it starts to send a little bit of shockwave. It's like, they get to make those decisions. And they are the most knowledgeable people in town on what they need and how they want to reopen school. And it's, as Assemblymember Ricci said, and Assemblymember, Tremblay said as well, which is keeping the school in business is really, really important to our economy. And so, I mean, we want to help, but we don't want to be in a position of weighing in on things that they are the experts on.
Get you, and then
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I know we're clear, but I just want you to understand that I totally understand what the authority of the Borough Assembly is. I have never said that I want to tell the school board what to do or the hospital what to do. I understand that. I know what their roles are, but there might be a time when we would ask more information or to clarify something with the school board, and somebody would have to make that call. I'm not going to make it, but I would hope somebody from the borough would make that call. I'm just trying to make this thing a little better. A couple weeks ago, I wanted to have this as a discussion item, and I was correctly told that, yeah, well, this is a direction that we're giving the city manager, so it has to be an action item. So here we are. Sandy Dixon has done a great job, but we need to make sure that everybody understands what the role of the borough is. I've said before in the past, the borough is the big umbrella for the entire community. And without us having some type of structure in place, a formal structure in place to answer the questions that the school might have or the hospital might have, we're missing out. And people are right. We need to look at this disease control thing that was made in 1973. It's just really bizarre. It just talks about, anyway, it's just really bizarre. So yeah, I understand where everybody's roles are. I just want to make sure that there's a good flow of dialogue between the borough and the hospital and the borough and the school district. And it's really important to me because I've heard a lot about it from folks around the community. Thank you.
I see you there, Member Stanton Gregor. Yeah,
Cool, thanks. Making sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Didn't want to pipe up. Yeah, just a further clarification on my end. Member Kinsinger phrased it well. My vote yes, which I feel more certain now will be yes, is not to, I don't want to micromanage you, Steve, my style. If we're going to empower you to do something, I want you to go do it. And in terms of the school board factor, no, I don't want to oversee the school board. I think it's just important for us to have some sort of structure for communicating in place, and planning for, just as a larger community. And this just makes sense as a very passive and benign first step, just in case we need to have some readiness. So yeah, just as a clarifier of where I'm coming from on this, I'll be voting yes for those reasons. Thanks.
Their input by assembly members. And so Clerk Thompson, I'm going to ask you what your opinion is on this. If we vote, we're voting for the manager to form a committee at his discretion with his number. And is there a time frame? I mean, does this happen tomorrow, or does it start forming if we vote yes immediately?
I would assume that you're directing him to get started on forming this committee and making sure the website has information on it from the school and the hospital.
Okay, any other input? I just to clarify my, Member Norheim. Taylor.
Yeah,
there?
sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
this isn't this just listening to it, doesn't this all seems kind of like it already falls under what Steve's directive kind of is, or what he's allowed to do as manager already. But then with kind of what's being directed, it seems like if, like you were saying, there's no time frame, or it's at his discretion, then would we be directing him to do something and he just doesn't even have to do it, or put no people on it because we're just saying at your discretion? I don't know. I it doesn't seem like a bad idea, but I guess I'm more aware, like what is, like I don't have a thing here anywhere that says, and it's just all it's all just what we've been talking about. There's no ordinance or anything laid out. That's all.
I think you're breaking up a little bit there, Member Norheim. I'm not sure what's going on there.
So if I may,
Manager Giesbrecht.
thank you, sir. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. We've added links to the website and we'll keep those up to date, and we will continue to kind of remind people. The hospital's putting out a bunch of press releases. You can get that on our website. You can get it on the hospital site. You can get it on the hospital's Facebook page. So we will continue to do that. And the group I talked about in my email that, pulling some people together. I'm a firm believer that we have to talk about what do we want to do and what the enforcement side of that should look like. Because if we can't enforce it, it's not worth a lot of time. So that's why the chief of police needs to be involved. And we're going to talk through that. I'm working with, we'll get somebody from the hospital assigned to that role. And then we'll meet and we'll talk about it. I heard earlier, can't remember who it is now, talked about that's a good group to dissect the ordinance. We'll do some of that. But I think some of that needs to come from the assembly too, as far as where you want the authority to lie. So that's going to be my committee for the moment. Particularly because, again, I'm outlining where I think the biggest threats are at the moment, which is the harbor. And I want to get my hands around that. The issues the hospital has had, or it's not really their problem, but where them in public health have quarantined someone and then we find them wandering around in town. I want to be able to deal with that and find out if we can. There's some issues with that. Our law enforcement doesn't know who is COVID positive. So I'm not exactly sure how we're going to catch people wandering around there. So that's something our health officer is going to have to help us with. And then the whole issue in the harbor, like I said, we've got to make people comfortable about what's happening and to be able to do it. So I'm already doing most of that and we'll keep doing it. And I'll just take this as reformation that we're moving forward on this stuff, and we'll keep the assembly, notified on it. So.
Well, I'm personally not going to vote for this, and it's not because I don't believe we need to keep an eye on it, but it sounds like you've got it handled. So, like I said, to have something as an action item and without the details presented to us, particularly on the agenda, one, so the public can see what we're discussing and what we're going to vote on. I think that's very important. So that's just my 2 cents. I appreciate your efforts and who you're talking about getting together and having discussions with. So if there's no other input, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bob,
No.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mark, Jay,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Taylor.
No.
Okay, this direction to the city manager passes on a 4-3 vote with members Norheim, Lynn, and Mayor Jensen opposed. That brings us to item C, Borough Manager Giesbrecht Performance Evaluation for 2021. We need an assembly member, so we need to select an assembly member to assist myself, the mayor, at the evaluation conference for Borough Manager Giesbrecht. So hands up, anybody interested? Member Stan Greger and Member Mucci and Member Lynn. So we have three, so I guess at this point we'd have to vote. What's the proper procedure, do you think, for this, Clerk Thompson? We just do it by voice? I think that's, you do, don't you? I mean,
Yes, but we don't really even have a motion, so maybe someone should make a motion about a specific member and then we can vote. Does that make sense?
yeah, and if they don't get 4 votes, then we move to the next
Yep.
member. That's probably the clearest way to do it. Okay, Member Kinsinger, you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that the panel as outlined be selected for the evaluation committee for Manager Giesbrick's performance evaluation.
Okay, but we need a
Cheater.
specific name as well. We have to vote. We have to vote because there's 3 interested parties.
Well,
Unless we're gonna arm wrestle and Jay's not here, so. we can't do that.
yeah, I'm saying we vote for all of them as a package. And if that motion fails, then we can go one by one,
I'll second that.
if that's legal.
For discussion, is that legal? That's a quorum of the meeting.
Yeah, we cannot do that,
Okay, so,
Last year it was the mayor and the mayor pro tem.
or the vice mayor.
Vice mayor, excuse me,
Yes.
say it right.
Year before that, I believe it was myself and Member Mucci.
Yes.
Process or not, but I think the way the clerk mentioned it, I mean, there's 3 people interested. And we have to vote by voice, I believe, except there's only certain things that you can vote by a closed ballot. So it has to be open to the public how we vote. So I think we should have a motion to select one person. You can make a motion to select yourself, I suppose, if that's. And I can't make a motion, all right? Member Kinsinger.
I make a motion that Mayor Jensen be on the borough performance evaluation.
I am.
That is already a
That's
given.
already there.
Yes, what we're looking for is the second.
The second.
The
Okay.
second
Oh,
person.
I'm totally confused now, obviously. I'll stop.
are you,
Member Norheim.
I would make a motion to have Bob Lynn on there.
We have a
as
second
the
for that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I don't think we need any discussion. I think we all understand what we're doing. If Member Lynn gets a 4 vote, he will be the one that assists myself in the manager's evaluation conference. And if he doesn't get 4 votes, we go to the next potential candidate. So clerk call the roll.
Mark,
Yes.
Jeff,
Oh,
David,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Chelsea,
yes,
Taylor,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Okay, so with that being done, Member Lynn will be assisting myself with for the manager's evaluation conference. So communications, there's a list of communications here received since July 29th, 2021. And we're not gonna go through them. That's not our policy. So if anybody would like to see what they are, you can get on the borough website and look at the agenda and go to item 16A, and you'll find communications listed by our clerk. Next item, 17, assembly discussion items. Excuse me, Petersburg School District reopening plan. Agenda item was requested by Assembly Member Mucci. So Member Mucci, want to start off the discussion?
sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a week or so ago, we had a letter from, or an email from the school superintendent or school admin about their reopening plan, and they specifically asked the Borough Assembly to, what our thoughts were on it. I've read it a couple times. I know this is, we talked about earlier, it's not the borough's responsibility or Borough Assembly's responsibility to tell the school board what to do, but they asked for our advice, and I just thought the plan was a good plan. They're looking to mask up for the first couple of weeks and see how things go. Like I said earlier, I think it's important to get the schools back on track. They've worked really hard to get this reopening plan together, and like I said earlier, I just wanted to know if the assembly had any individual comments they wanted to say about it, or if not, we can just go on to the next item. But I think they've done a great job and I support what the school district is trying to do. Thank you.
Any other input on this discussion item this evening? Member
Yes,
Dan
please.
Gregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was going to save this actually for assembly member comments, but it fits better here. Is it's encouraging those with school age children to be patient with the school district. They want what we want in their school reopening. They want kids in school full time. Teachers love to teach. Teachers love kids in their classroom. That's why they chose that profession. That's what they want. And having paid attention to early school reopenings around the country right now, it's been pretty messy. And I wouldn't pretend to say that there's a perfect solution, but I guess I would encourage everyone to be patient with them. Having spoken with teachers and administrators, we all have the common goal in mind: kids in full-time school, for all the reasons listed earlier. So just reach out to them, email them if you have questions, but know that we're working from the same playbook. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Stanton Gregor. Any other input? Member Lynn?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's very important for our kids to be in school. And I support the school board and what they've done. And look back a year ago from what we went through, they've made some tough choices and they're going to continue, I think, to make the right choices here as we go down the road. And so I'm with you, is that I think we need to continue to support what they're doing, and I hope the community will also, because it's important to keep the schools open. Thank you.
Tremblay?
I don't envy the school board. So many of us are over this situation and want to be able to act like it is over, and we cannot. And so until our most vulnerable students can be protected through vaccination, I hope that they make their plans with health of everybody in mind. They are charged with providing a healthy and safe space for all students to be able to learn in. And right now that includes masking as long as they deem necessary. And so I know that that's not something that that's not a situation everybody thrives in, and my heart goes out to those folks. But, the school board is in charge, again, of the health and safety of the students in their charge when they're in that building during the day. And that's the bottom line. And, we wouldn't be okay with serving food that would cause 15% of the students to have possibly permanent neurological or cardiovascular damage. That would be, marching down the street. Absolutely not my children. But because it's a virus that we're all tired of, it's somehow become a topic of discussion. And so, and that's for healthy students. We also have students in higher risk categories that we as a community need to protect. So I hope the school board, I have full faith in them in making the calls, and they, again, are following protocols that they're not able to not follow. So keeping the schools going, keeping them open, and keeping the kids in classrooms is definitely a priority. And I just really hope that the school year gets off to a smooth start and stays smooth. That's all of us want.
Kinzinger?
Yes, I want to thank the school board. I know they had a very lengthy school board meeting, and this was discussed at length, their reopening plans. And I just want to thank all the school board members for their time and effort that they spent on this plan. And I guess the main thing that I want to tell the schools in town is that if you need help or you need something from the borough, ask, and we'll do what we can do.
Any other input on this discussion item? Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda. Excuse me, assembly member comments. Member Norheim, did you have input on the school board reopening plan, or is this a assembly member comment?
No, it was a reopening plan. I was just gonna be that guy. I had considered pulling my kid and going to homeschooled, and I had discussed that with her. As it
You're breaking up, Member Norheim. We're getting about every second or third word.
Okay, well, I am happy with where it is at right now. Their plan is right now. but that could change depending on how things move through the town. I would not be opposed to homeschooling if it was the option, but I hope we don't get to that point. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other input on this discussion item? Okay, seeing no hands going up, that'll move us to item 17B, assembly member comments. Any comments by assembly members? I think we've kind of thrown comments in with this discussion item, and Member Lynn?
Yeah, I have two comments. One is that I want to follow up and thank Sandy for all the work on our recent cruise ship incident. And I follow up with what Mr. Hofstadter told me, that he also thanks you for all the work you did on it. Second item is that I got to put my hat on. Just God willing, I will not be at the next meeting. The ferries run, the border stays open, I'm going north. Thank you.
Okay, so duly noted, if you're not here, you're excused. If there's no other assembly member comments, that brings us to recognitions. Any recognitions by staff or by assembly members? Member Tremblay.
I'd like to thank Petersburg Medical Center for the amazing travel testing that is happening from 12 to 4 at the emergency room doors. I was able to take advantage of it twice and it was so smooth. I popped in, popped out, and got the results I was hoping for, which is the dream. And that's exactly the kind of thing that we need to keep town running smoothly. And I'm hoping that we can figure out how to help publicize that and get more folks taking advantage of that. That's just sending that out into the air. If anyone has any hot ideas, I'm open to that, because I knew exactly where it was, but I realized as a traveler landing at the airport, you may not necessarily. And so, so thank you for Pearson Medical Center. And there is stand-up asymptomatic testing happening Thursday from 9 to 12. And that's next to the respiratory clinic down in the little parking area. And so I hope that the community takes advantage of that as well, because having regular asymptomatic testing, I think, is a huge, I'm thinking of myself as a retail employee, seeing outward facing members of the public. This is a nice way for me to be able to keep my life running smoothly and also know that I'm not putting any community members at risk, especially those who can't get vaccinated because of age or health concerns. So so thank you to PMC for all the work that they're doing and to public health for that.
Any other recognitions? Okay, before I entertain a motion to go into executive session, we had the discussion with Clerk Thompson today, and just to remind all the assembly members, if you're calling in, you need to be in the room by yourself. This is confidential information we discuss. So we need to make sure we don't violate that and violate the Open Meetings Act. Jay looks like he's on top of a mountain and Taylor's hiding in his
Yeah, do coyotes count?
So anyway, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. The reason for the executive session is to discuss the status and strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Petersburg Municipal Employees Association, getting the update from Manager Giesbrecht and Clerk Thompson. So
move.
Second.
okay, so we will take a 2-minute break, let the room empty out, and then we will have this executive session. Are Jody and Carl going to be in here because they're part of the negotiating team? Okay.
Thanks, Eddie.
Before you all leave,
Looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry. Actually, I will be texting you gentlemen the number to call. I kind of forgot about the executive session part. And this Zoom call is ending.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
We'll
cool.
wait till you guys call in and before we convene the executive session.
Thank you.
All right, cool.